let's get things started off with Mardi Gras Massacre from 1978. So essentially this movie is about this somewhat wealthy-looking guy who's going around from bar to bar, taking hookers back to his apartment and performing these ritual-type sacrifices with them. And it's all happening during Mardi Gras, as per the title of the movie, even though it doesn't really have all that much to do with Mardi Gras outside of one scene late in the movie. Now, this is one of those movies that I think is widely considered a pretty poor movie. However, I think, at least for me, it's one of those movies that's kind of just so bad it's good. Like, there's a lot of stupid things that happen in this movie. And I guess I have the benefit of having watched an interview with the guy that plays the killer in this movie, William Mezzo, and he's talked a lot about what happened in this movie or the production of the movie, and it's pretty interesting because I believe the director, who, just off the top of my head, I think it was Jack Weiss, apparently he's just tried to throw in a lot of different things that were popular at the time, hoping, just throwing all these different things in, thinking, it's got all these things that people like, therefore it's going to be a very good movie, or at least a very entertaining movie. So, disco was popular at the time, throw some of that in. Obviously, a lot of people like to see nudity, throw that in. People like to see gore, throw that in. People like to see car chases, throw a car chase scene in there for no good reason. Yeah, so it's one of those movies that's got so many problems, but I don't know, just something about that, it just became really entertaining to me. They always play this funky music every time he's trying to sacrifice one of these women that he takes home. The music in this movie, it's top notch. At least for me.
So just to give a little background, I've known about this movie for many years now. For a long time it's been on my... I have a list of horror movies I want to see, and this has been on that list for at least 5-6 years. And I've heard that it's not a particularly great movie, multiple times from multiple people. And seeing it, I can attest that it's not a great movie. Which isn't to say you can't get some enjoyment from it. I think Chuck is right. If you're watching this, there are definitely some things that you can sort of have a good time with. But for a lot of the movie, more than anything else, I was just bored out of my mind. And I was reminded of bad movies like Blood Feast by H.G. Lewis, from '63, which has quite a similar plot to this one. And honestly, even though it came out 15 years earlier, I think it's decently about the movie. And I don't mind some of the stuff in this movie. I don't mind the budget. As much as I make fun of it, I'm going to make fun of it. I don't really mind the soundtrack. I get it. Disco is popular and, it makes sense. But even so, with all of that aside, I thought there's just not much excitement going on in this movie. It just felt repetitive, and it just felt, in many ways, uninspired, in my opinion. The one shining light, if there is a shining light, would probably be that the goal for what it is it's decent. They knew what they were going for, and I think they did okay. And the guy who plays the killer, it's just so ridiculous that I know he's an interesting guy. I sort of enjoy his dialogue. I was looking for the evil women. So I know that guy was certainly interesting. Despite that, this isn't really one that I would recommend. That said, I would let Chucky talk about maybe why you should see it.
Well, I think first and foremost, like we were saying, the guy that played, or the main character, the killer in the movie, played by William Mezzo, I think he's I don't know, he's got a really good screen presence for someone who I think has only been in one movie, this movie. He might have been in one other movie, I'm not sure, but yeah, I don't think he's really been in anything else. And whether you're looking too closely or dissecting his performance. I think there's times throughout the movie where just very subtle, simple things that he does. And one thing I can point out, if you look on our YouTube channel, search for Mardi Gras Massacre, I have uploaded a scene a little while back, one of the opening scenes to the movie. And kind of just right at the end of that scene, you can see his face switch as soon as the woman gets up and walks away. He's kind of got this smile, then it kind of turns into this, well, pretty much the opposite, but you don't even really notice it because of the shot, I guess. It's not a movie that's particularly shot well, and I can go into that a little more later as well, because I know a few things what were happening there. But no, I thought his performance was, I would say, underrated, or at least his screen presence is underrated. Like, no one really talks about him or this performance.
I would probably say that he fits more into this movie than most other people did.
Yeah. And, well, the funny thing is, I don't even think he auditioned for the movie. It's just some guy knew him and said, hey, you play this killer in this movie, and it's like, okay. So he didn't really have to like compete against other people. I don't think there was a auditioning process at all. And like I was saying, with the production issues and everything, apparently the director, as he was filming this movie, he just kept running out of film. So, they would just film small bits and pieces, and then eventually I'd have to go buy more film when he had more money to do so. And so he planned on doing a lot more close-up shots, which actually never happened. And you can tell, if you actually go back and watch certain scenes, you can actually tell that there's some scenes where, they've got close-ups and then a whole bunch of other scenes where they don't, or they've got very minimal different shots from the scenes. And I don't know, that's probably another reason why the movie's kind of, like I said, maybe some people kind of bore you out of your mind, partially because they're not doing a whole lot in that area as well.
Well, I think another issue this movie had, that aside from the killer, there wasn't really that much in the way of engaging characters. I mean, one of the main protagonists, I would argue he's one of the main protagonists, is the cop whose name I forget. But, I mean, that guy was just, like, throughout the whole movie, he is a decently dislikable character. Oh, I mean, one of my favorite parts is when he's sort of dating this prostitute, and then he just goes off on her, like, a week later, he slaps her around a few times, and it just, like, goes off on her. And then he apologizes, and of course, at the end, they get back together and talk about it. That's maybe a bit too misogynistic 70s for me.
Well, just speaking of that particular scene, and that's another example of, the issues with the movie in terms of how it was filmed, but you could see, even in that scene, there's a moment where she stands up, and then a second later, she's back sitting down on the bed, and then a few seconds later, suddenly she's standing up again, and that cop, he actually disappears, like, just from the movie in, like, the last, 10-15 minutes. Yeah. And I'm assuming they ran out of film to film any more scenes with him, because he was the main guy chasing the killer, and he just randomly disappears, and basically his partner takes over the rest of the movie.
Although I will say I've never seen such an uninteresting investigation before in my life. Like, that's such a bad investigation. I mean, this thing, I don't know if you noticed this, but this is where I thought the movie was going to go. I thought that once that one girl was killed and they found the body, they would have done an autopsy and found the Chinese food in her stomach. Then I thought, hey, they're going to go to the Chinese place and then they're going to find out about the killer. Now, they do go to the Chinese place, but it's just this random, hey, have you seen this ring? Like, I don't know, I feel like I could have done a better investigation than those guys did.
Yeah, well, that's a part of its charm for me. Yeah, it's pretty silly. And when I was saying before, like, it's for me, it's in that so bad it's good type category. And there's other movies from kind of back in the 70s or 80s where you could say that it's not quite as it's it's not funny, or in most people's cases probably not entertaining enough to laugh at. But for me, I don't know. I just found a lot of it entertaining, whether it was funny moments and just all the silly production issues that are glaringly, obviously, pointing out at you on the screen.
There was one scene that this was somewhat toward the end of the movie, in which I think it's the main cop is talking to the former vice, lead detective, and he's saying, "Hey, I can help you find your, the girlfriend you broke up with. I can help you find her, but you've got to be about the individual to her." And while he's having this really personal conversation with him, the detective's partner is just sitting off to the side, listening to everything. And it has to be one of the most awkward. He really shouldn't be there for that. So I don't know, that scene sort of cracked me up when that came on.
Well, hey, I mean, you get to see some tits in the movie.
that is true. There's a somewhat impressive amount of nudity in this movie that I didn't necessarily expect. Plus, there's a pretty good character called The Fish.
Just in that interview with the guy that played the killer, he was talking about how one of the women, and I guess back in the day where boob jobs is like more of a new thing, and he was talking about how one of them, their tits are like solidified and they're rock hard, and he's talking about a scene where he's like rubbing oil all over them, and I don't know, just
well,
fun.
I mean, those massages were pretty erotic stuff, so.
I envied him. Yeah, but this is I didn't expect a whole lot out of the movie, and just it has a charm for me with its music and all of its goofs throughout the movie, all of its unintentional goofs, and it's trying pretty hard to be something, and it ends up just being ridiculous in so many ways. And the killer himself, he's just so charismatic to me. I'm so surprised that he hasn't been in anything else. I love his voice, love a lot of his facial expressions, and I just really enjoyed the movie. And I've seen it a couple times now, and I enjoy it every single time. But I do watch it on Blu-ray, so the best quality out there. I have a feeling if I had tried watching this on like a VHS quality or a poor DVD type release, I could see myself potentially being bored by it, because I'm not picking up on some of these all the small details with, like I said, facial expressions and stuff. I enjoyed it, so I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10.
That is quite an impressive rating. It's a movie I wish I liked more than I do. I mean, because the name of the movie is Mardi Gras Massacre. How can you not like that name? But I find the movie more than anything else somewhat tedious. I appreciated. I mean, I guess I appreciated the nudity, but I appreciated the gore also. I mean, it's pretty, like I said, it's repetitive, but I mean, it's it's decently going movie at times, so I enjoyed it. But overall, I just found the movie sort of too boring to really be a so bad it's good type thing. So I mean, I'm going to give this one a low rating, but I could probably see myself watching it sometime in the future. But it's definitely a below average movie, and I'll probably give this one a 5 out of 10.
You're gonna get such a beating.
I know. I'm used to it. That's not the only time tonight I'm going to get a beating, but
just one other thing with those gory scenes where he's taking out body parts, and that's another thing. The parts he's taking out, they look quite large. I like they're from a cow or something probably, yeah. But they look twice the size as they probably should for a human. So just another small thing where it's a little over the top and somewhat entertaining.